So where will we put this?
It's regarding the composter, actually, so.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Is that really a business horizon? It's not a horizon. Well, yeah,
Sure
in
is.
the minutes.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's call that 5.2.
Compost update.
Unless that's organization. Okay, so our agenda is basically to continue to work on our plan, and it would be great if we could get that pretty well sorted today. And you'll notice that Sarah's added one more column, budget, because that is in our terms of reference. We would have to present our proposed plan to council, and with the proposed budget, and council will consider both. Sort of thing. That's how it works. Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna do a housekeeping first.
Oh, yeah. Meaning the action items?
I already took out the minutes.
Oh, no, I know all that.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, so I just went through the agenda.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, so, so let's go through our, anyone to move the agenda? Okay, I seconded. All those in favor? Both carried. Okay, so that's our agenda. The minutes, have a look at the minutes. Any errors or omissions? Okay, seeing none, anyone want to move approval of the minutes? Seconded. Okay. All in favor? Opposed and carried. Okay. So let's get into our agenda then. Action items review, action items for October 17th. Go back. Yeah. Think of incentive ideas for blower door testing for Bowen to implement, and then North Vancouver offers a $500 rebate, and edit the work plan. Okay, we're working on it. That was done. I think, let's leave the blower door testing. I mean, it's really part of our work plan.
Sure.
I think we should just say leave it as part of our work plan for now. So that, we could just get onto our work plan. Then, I just want to say a couple of words before that. Going through, when I went through this, I thought, okay, this is pretty good. I enjoyed the process, and we all enjoyed the process. But I wanted to just say a little bit about making sure, my experience in the past is very often councils and committees, they try to do a whole lot of stuff and then they don't get them finished. And we've got some great ideas down here, but I think when we complete them all, we need to just go through them carefully to say, okay, which one of these, which are the ones that are achievable within a year, and which are the ones that are most important? And are there some of those things that would really involve a lot of either our time or staff time that maybe would be too hard to achieve in this year? And thinking about staff time, like we asked Sarah does stuff for us, but of course Sarah can't just do stuff when we ask her to do it. She has to get approval to do it, and with Kathy and Daniel and so on. And so we have to, when we look at these, I'd like us to think about them in terms of how we get them done ourselves. Can we be people who do a bunch of this stuff? Or do we really need some staff time? Or do we need some budget to bring in a consultant? So we need to think of all those things and then decide, okay, in terms of our own time, what are the things that we could do within the time that we have, and how much of Sarah's time will we need, and so on. So just to try to be realistic in the end, because of course, in the end, this will go to council. Council will look at it and say, this looks terrific. They've asked for a reasonable budget, and then we'll approve it, and that will be that. That's what we'd like to see. Okay? So let's start by just looking at what we did last week, and then move on to the new stuff, because we've got a couple of new ones to do. So I thought that was a lot of fun at the time. Let's just have a look. Everyone just spend time looking at water for a sec. Look at the goal and look at the things that we've suggested that we do. Have we captured it all? The one thing I think we're missing is the one that says collect rainfall data for the purpose of.
I think I missed that, sorry. And we didn't have information on it, so I just wasn't sure what we wanted that.
What that was information on aquifers, I think, where we wanted to get information on aquifers because we have one test well. We apparently have 7 major aquifers. I think Alan told us that last time, I'm not sure. Yeah,
Yes, something like that.
I've been repeating it, I know somebody told me, it wasn't me.
There was an email that went around from Bonnie,
Bonnie.
so a couple of months
Oh,
ago.
that's
Yeah.
Yeah,
well,
and I
If you-
did
if you-
find the map.
If you don't have it, I can send it to you again.
Well,
if you-
But we only do have the one test well, but I had a conversation with John Reed, and John said he actually drilled a whole bunch of test wells over the last years, and the municipality hasn't been, has just kind of left them. Whether that would meet our need or not, I'm not sure, we can investigate that. But let's just that one, instead of collect rainfall data, it should be collect data on aquifers.
Okay.
Is that okay, Alan, is that?
Yes, but I think at the time we talked about a meteorological station or just some baseline data that
Oh.
the municipality would be
Oh,
collecting
so
on
it's
an
two-
ongoing basis.
I think
So there is a,
Oh, so it was
it
rainfall.
covers sort of both. And so maybe under that, we can say rainfall or rainfall data and
Rainfall and aquifer.
aquifer data for the purpose of water resource management or something.
Okay.
And I know that the municipality used to, I don't know if they still do, I assume they still do, they have a meteorological station at the Grafton Lake Chlorination Shack that measures rainfall.
Okay, cool.
They did as of a few years ago. I don't know if they still have it, so I don't know if we can access that information if needed.
Mhm.
All right, well, let's just complete this, collect rainfall and aquifer data for the purpose, of,
About sustainable water resource management?
great.
Wow.
That's a big one.
Snap, that was done.
Sorry, did I miss the last bit?
Collect rainfall and aquifer data for the purpose of sustainable water resource management. So the methods would be, well, Mark, you think we have a station, so it would be just,
Access that
So it's-
information.
Under
You can install a network of
a
stations.
network of groundwater monitoring wells.
yeah, good.
Under the station ones?
Yeah.
Groundwater monitoring wells?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Or we can just talk to John Reed if he's already
Mhm.
installed some of them.
Or we can just take
Yes,
credit
we-
for having installed them.
Yeah, right. So we say.
Well,
install-
ensure we have a monitoring well at each of our aquifers.
Install or insure slash?
Inquire.
Inquire,
Yeah, I was gonna say adopt. If they're already there.
Yes, adopt, yeah.
adopt, which means you might have to drill them or you might not.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
So you were saying about this bit at the beginning, David. Did you want to start doing that, or we're not there yet?
I guess we're not there yet, I mean, just.
I guess anyone feels the urge to volunteer.
Mhm.
Well, okay, let's look at water. Are there any other corrections that we need? Increased irrigation efficiency, yeah. Then let's think about the resources needed to do all these things that we're saying here. Let's just sort of talk about, okay, how would we achieve them? Would it be through partnerships, members assigned? I guess on the adopted network of groundwater monitoring wells, partnerships who could sort of check with, we shouldn't mention someone's name, check with,
Grafton Lake, what's his name? What's it?
Grafton Lake Lands Project?
yeah, sure, yeah, that sounds good.
So that would be John.
Yeah,
It's two separate words, Lake Lands, by the way, just for.
Just for
yeah.
wonderful
Yeah.
accurateness.
I wonder if Bob would also have information on some of this, if we have any
Yeah.
that are,
So
yeah.
Public Works.
Public Works,
Department?
yeah, not,
Absolutely, public works.
And you know, there are other people on the island way back. Anne Charlotte established a whole bunch of, it's obtained from Environment Canada, a bunch of rainwater, we call pluviometer, rainwater meters.
So,
And she, I think, has been managing that data, so we could just say, you know, interests of public or something.
so, yeah, why don't we assign one of us to check with members of the public, with past experience or past data or something like that?
I volunteer to do that.
Val, okay, great.
Is Alan in
it's fine, I'm not,
Yeah,
For the,
yeah, I think that's fine,
okay.
yeah. Create additional reservoir opportunities, like this is a huge one. Do we have the resources to do that?
I don't, that's a big ask right there.
It's a big ask. We don't have the resources. We'll,
So it says research possible locations, that's not,
But even if you start getting into researching the implications of putting a lake somewhere, I
yeah,
think,
putting it somewhere, this is a big
Yeah.
deal.
yeah, it is a big deal.
I think this is something we would need to assess probably down the road,
Yeah.
but I don't think we need to do it in our first year.
Mhm.
yeah, I agree,
Can we drop it?
yes.
Are we all okay with that? Okay.
And maybe that's something we look into as part of the municipal natural assets
Oh, that's an interesting
inventory,
idea.
right?
Yes.
Like that,
Yeah.
that could be an outcome
Mhm.
from that.
Yeah,
Right?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, very good. Let's look at the first one, cisterns.
Was
Really
it
important.
Maureen that sent over
Yes.
something about this then? Okay, yeah.
And
Yeah.
someone's offering, the Sunshine Coast Regional District is offering $500, I think it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah,
That
there's
was really
rebates,
interesting.
yeah.
A rebate to install a cistern.
Yeah, I find this one really interesting.
Yeah.
Political
Yeah.
partnerships Sunshine Coast then? Is that too wide?
We'd be just looking at, it wouldn't be a partnership for them, it's just sort of looking at what they did, which is give $500.
Yeah.
So
But that, yeah, so that was something that I was interested in because I wonder if I should get in touch with someone from Sunshine Coast Regional District to see how they budgeted for it and how many
And how
like
they
water
built it.
users they had.
That would
and-
be excellent.
And how did they build the program?
Exactly, because I know that was your
Remember, right?
question,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
So Sarah,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
would like to ask you to do something, but you've offered.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
You go.
Well, at least so I can get an idea of how their program's set up
Yeah.
and bring that back to the committee, and then you guys can
Yeah.
provide suggestions of how maybe we can do
Yeah,
it.
that sounds good. Okay,
Should I put et cetera, or I'm just gonna do the one?
no, that's good enough, yeah.
They were the ones who had established a similar program to us, because a lot of local governments have like the rain barrel
They have the little
harvesting,
rain
but they're
barrels.
smaller, they're for your garden, whereas we
Yeah.
are looking like for water
Yeah.
protection. and
Because
Yeah.
they had
for
a
fire
minimum
protection.
amount and it was a
Yeah.
substantial
Yeah.
amount of water.
Minimum 1,000
Yeah.
gallons, I think.
Yeah.
it is,
Yeah.
Of how much, Alan?
1,000 gallons,
Okay,
it's good size.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
Lots of cities have had, you know, the little rain barrels.
Little
that
ones,
are
yeah.
Good for your strawberry patch.
There may be other local governments who have the larger ones too, I'm not sure. It's just the first one I've seen.
Yeah, Islands Trust would be another interesting one
Oh,
to
yeah?
check out.
Okay.
Because of the islands that have
Right.
even greater water scarcity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
You'd think the islands would be really interested in this.
Mhm.
Well, we could ask Will. We can volunteer Will.
The one who's not here.
Will to research the Islands Trust, let's put that. Sorry, Will.
Well,
You don't show up, that's what happens.
don't worry, put the name on, sorry.
Yeah. Because that's a really good idea. Okay,
Create
the gardeners, we've done the aquifer data.
There's that other bullet under.
yeah, this here.
Oh, yeah.
Create an infinite receptor uses.
Yeah. I mean,
That's,
that
that's kind of
Well,
the
will
same.
That's
come,
kind of the
right?
outcome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'll just put this in this
Yeah.
format.
Sure.
Yeah, okay, great. Then we've got that aquifer data, well, so irrigation efficiency,
I can fix it later, don't worry about it.
okay, not to worry. So I joined the garden club, so I can put my name for, I will research with the garden club, so this is the irrigation efficiency, the gardeners one, because I'm interested in that particularly as well. So I'll check with the garden club, or I'll research what the garden club's up to, whether they have, maybe they already have a program, who knows?
And also things like responsible gardening practices, like the use of mulch
Yeah,
in
yeah,
your gardens
Mhm.
really
Yeah.
reduces water loss and
yeah,
water retention.
Now, is-
yeah, so,
So method is,
so.
Is this piece related to providing information, or is that kind of
This is
where you
providing
were with that?
information.
I
Yeah,
see
okay.
This is providing
Okay.
information, so.
acquire and provide information.
Yeah, acquire and provide information,
To the community?
yeah. So the providing information part, you know, that requires some communication services of some sort. It might be staff, it might be, I mean, it could be quite simple, just go in the stuff that we send out through them. but if we wanted to do an advertising program of some sort, it would, that would cost some money.
Yeah.
So if we want to do that, we can think about that. Do we
Is
want?
that related to the bullet below?
The education
Yeah.
one?
This
Yeah.
is gardening.
It is.
or Gardening.
Well, this is
I think the gardening is more, like, it's more
the
specific to,
hands-on.
whereas like, education of the public is like turning your tap off when you brush your teeth type
Bix
stuff.
has a garden club too,
Yeah,
so we could talk to Sarah Haxby
okay.
and talk to her. I mean, just to, for that, it's more go under
That's great.
education for the
You
kids,
say
not
these clubs.
necessarily.
Yeah. So do you want to throw your name in?
Yeah, I can talk to Sarah.
Be afraid to speak at this table.
So would that be?
You were
Yeah.
thinking in the previous box, or probably, were you, or not? Or-
No, I think that, well, it could be either.
Could be
So
either, okay,
it-
let's leave it.
I think they're kind of similar.
Yeah, they are.
Doesn't matter.
In a way, we're sort of anticipating feedback from the schools back to the homes.
Right?
Yeah.
It'd be great. The kids do it.
Yeah.
Do you want to do this or no? Good.
No, unless you want me to.
Nope.
Okay.
Okay, let's move down to waste management, and maybe you should just give us your briefing on waste management here, would that be appropriate, or is that?
Sure, if you want.
Yeah.
Hold on, what's happening up here?
Oh, yeah, okay, no partnerships for that, okay, good.
It's plain square, it's freaking me out.
Okay,
Just leave.
okay, here we go.
Okay, so let's just look at our boxes here, new stuff out of that. Yeah, so our overall objective and our first strategic action are identical.
Okay, so this, yeah, so that would be the first docket. Work with Bowen Waste to implement.
Digester, yeah.
Right, so would you like me to mention what I was here, David? or-
Yeah, but let's first just decide what the difference is between our overall objective and our first action of the same wording. Like, what is our overall objective higher than that? Is it?
Zero waste, overall objective.
I mean, it's fine, that's fine as an overall objective.
To reduce the amount of waste that the island generates, or
Oh,
as an overall objective?
Okay, that's interesting, because you are now including some of these other things. Reduce plastic and waste and so on.
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
To divert waste the island
Yeah.
produces. To use the.
are you talking to
waste-
me?
No, I'm talking out loud, actually.
Thinking
Sorry.
about- yeah.
To use the waste the island produces as a resource.
I think you're saying waste, remember?
I'm trying
Yeah.
to equate the waste with the resource, because not everyone's gonna get that.
I had given this one some thought, or at least it emerged in my mind during the week, and really, our goal, and it's the one place where the word waste is maybe appropriate, is
Yeah.
zero waste.
Yes.
In other words, to make substantial steps towards zero waste.
That's nice. To make substantial steps towards zero waste. Yeah, good and high level. Yeah, then we can leave the other one as it is. Okay,
And we're assigned?
okay, well, Denise was gonna tell us about what she learned
So
about this today.
I had a discussion today, in discussion with, what's her name? Ellen McIntosh.
Yeah. Okay.
Of the Ready.
The Ready.
So she came to me and asked me what was happening with the digester.
Okay.
And I said that well, I know what you had told us at the
Yeah.
last meeting, but I didn't feel like I had the authority to share with that
Yeah.
because I wasn't clear on how you would want that shared. So I just listened and just said I could ask David, to contact you or contact Louise McIntosh too. And I left it, and she opened up a discussion and said to me that she was really wanting, first of all, some communication because it was absolutely of interest to the Ready that to find out what's going on. But she mentioned that the Ready was actually interested in making that happen financially if we
Oh.
wanted. So that's how much they want the digester. So it wasn't, it was just a comment, but it was such a strong comment. I thought maybe it warrants that a discussion would come forward on that, or maybe opening up.
She should talk to Louise, but I could just give her a call.
Yeah,
I'll
maybe
give her a call.
calling her, and she wanted to also find out if there was anything around the plastics and stuff like that, and I just, again, we're just getting started here, so
Yeah.
I didn't have any comment.
So I can't call her the next 2 days. I'm going to the Zero Waste Conference downtown for the next 2 days.
Appropriately.
Yeah, appropriately, and there's a whole session on plastic. But I'll talk to her after that.
Thank you.
Yeah, maybe I'll send her an email.
Yes, I just thought it actually was good news. If you're
Yeah.
saying we don't have the funds for it or whatever, it's not moved, then it could be something.
And you know, that identifies, Denise, that partnership could possibly the rubber potato.
Exactly. Yeah.
Where are we? This one here?
Yeah.
Yeah, but let's not name a specific business. Let's say,
Whole Foods?
let's
Island
say
businesses?
island businesses. Yeah.
Because the project that Ellen had talked about before was to get the island businesses online with switching the
Yeah.
potato
That's
containers
right.
to the
That's right.
compostable.
It's in
containers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you know, what's happening there too is that the municipality, because Bowen Waste is hired by the municipality.
Yes.
And there was, the initiative was to have that eventually, the digester incorporated into Bowen Waste's
Yeah.
contract.
Yeah,
The municipality is actually a partner here too.
yeah, exactly. Yes. Okay, that's good.
Or is that sort of a moot point, because the municipality is a partner everywhere?
Well, we're a committee of council.
What would our action be?
I was thinking like finance department or whatever is
Yeah.
issuing
Yeah.
funds.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, so if we feel, okay, just a sec.
Well, that just goes into budget. Oh, no, it's on our, oh, yeah.
No, it does, well, no. So, work with Bowen Waste to implement the digester. Well, actually, what we want to do is we need to open the discussion between the contractor and the municipality around their contract. That's what we need to do. So
Right.
rather than mention anyone's names here, we want to work with the municipality to potentially integrate the digester into the waste contract.
And am I wrong in recalling that, I think it was Maureen who may have made a comment that the contract is done, but it can be,
Yeah, no, I said
Can
that
we-
last time. Yeah,
okay,
that's what,
it's not
I
hard
talked
to,
to Louise.
yeah, okay.
And if the contract, it's done right now because it's just
But it needed to get
council
done,
and all
yeah,
that kind of
yeah.
stuff, need to get it done, but it doesn't mean it can't be opened.
Yeah. And I'm sure the municipality would not be adverse
Yeah.
if someone wanted to
Yeah.
give them money to get it done. I mean,
So-
it's a discussion.
I think work with the municipality to assess the feasibility of integrating the digester into, we need to have them work on the feasibility of it.
Yeah.
We don't know the details, they know the contract, we don't, and so on.
Right.
And they know the financials, it needs to fit into the financial plan for the municipality, and so on.
And does that mean then that the uppermost bullet that's just above
Yeah,
there goes out?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so, yeah. 'Cause we shouldn't have that in our plan.
Yeah.
We would have conversations and so on, but, yeah. Okay. Contribute to the discussion regarding uses of the byproduct. Now, that's interesting because remember, Alan, you wanted to find out more about the nutrients.
Yes.
But I spoke to someone about this, I don't remember, in a different conversation, about the potential to use it as fuel for the community center. So, I mean, we've got a couple of different options there. That just says we should be part of that discussion, that's all.
And something that Greg Cormier mentioned last meeting was that would fit in with your energy
That's right.
step code.
That's right. We discussed it last week,
Yeah.
you're right,
Which reminds me, that's something that we requested of the speakers when they came. I haven't heard back about that, so it
Yeah.
might be worth rattling Louise's cage.
That's
to
right.
Rattle their cage.
Yeah. Hi, Maureen.
Hi.
Maureen. So Maureen, what we're doing is we're working,
I've been following along on the live stream, so.
Oh,
nice.
I know where you are.
Oh, fantastic. Okay, you're very high tech. Okay. Oh yeah, let's, Alan, do you want to follow up on that, since you raised it with Louise? Just give
Sure.
Louise a nudge to give those fellows a nudge from that company.
Oh,
Alan will follow up on, Alan to follow up on nutrients content of compost, or I guess we call it, it's not really compost, what sort of compost?
byproduct.
Like a byproduct, yeah, digestate. Okay, good, slap Alan in there,
Oh, that's in here?
that's in here.
Oh, sorry, I put
Not
an
to
acronym in
follow
the minutes.
Alan.
Sorry.
Read nutrient levels or something, nutrient levels of the digestate or whatever you call it.
Digestate.
You could call it that, but we could call it something simpler.
Biomass,
Yeah.
maybe not that simple.
I like that gestate though.
I do too.
Sounds cool.
Digestate, well, that's a technical name for what
Sounds
comes
like
out of the digestate.
Sounds what?
Very human.
Okay, let's get down to biochar.
Okay.
Alan, this is your gig, tell us
Yeah.
about more. Yeah, how feasible is it?
Very feasible.
Okay.
And certainly, I can,
So
go
slap
into that
Alan's
one.
name.
Next time, I will bring my little demo, I've got
Okay.
2 paint cans here.
Oh, cool.
That would be cool.
So tell us a bit more about creating a demonstration project. Who would that be for? Okay, you can show us here, but then
Well,
what would you do?
it would be for anybody who has dry woody waste, who wants to
Okay.
turn it into charcoal and
Yeah.
use it as a soil amendment
Right.
in their gardens.
So it'd be like the kind of things that some of our other organizations do, like what you call
Garden club or going in transition.
Bone in Transition, I was thinking of, they would do a
Yes.
session on that, could combine with them perhaps.
Yep, for
Get
sure.
their members to be interested in that, that would be cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Reduce plastic and waste and increase recycling of alternative materials. Well, that ties into what we were,
Mm-hmm.
well, it doesn't quite, we haven't got it down yet. In terms of working with the Ruddy or businesses. We have, we have island businesses up there, reduce of island, contribute to fair use of byproduct. No, we should put this as a separate item, I think, yeah.
Excuse me.
So,
I think there's education in there, definitely, and
Well, it would be working with Bowen, let's say we're working with Bowen businesses, because they're the ones who will be promoting this, and to assist them in, you know, in promoting their work. Something like that.
And encouraging them to switch to compostable?
Well,
Is
certainly.
that too
we would-
much?
No, I think that's fair. If we've got 1 or 2 businesses that are doing this, we could then work with them to give presentations to other ones.
Yeah.
maybe some bit of research of what communities have already done the transition enough to be able to show a model or something.
Actually, that's a really good idea.
Is the word compostable material, compostable
Yes, it is.
takeout
Yeah.
materials?
Yeah.
Takeout
Yes.
Yeah.
containers?
Yeah.
Sorry, what did you say?
To see other communities that have done the transition, if there's anybody who
Yeah.
can model them.
Need to research best practices.
Yeah. And the Ready's pretty much already done that,
I think so.
Possibly.
because they've got, most of their stuff is already
Yeah.
Yeah.
compostable.
Yeah.
already.
You can bring your own containers too,
Yes.
but a lot of people don't do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Contamination of the recycling stream.
Hold on a second.
I'll volunteer to do that one.
Okay. Mark.
That might also be something to take to the Economic Development Committee,
Okay,
because we have established connections with
excellent.
various sectors of the business community.
Yeah, so right in there. Businesses, ACC, perfect.
Since I'm already working with Ellen on the plastic thing, because we're talking about it, could you put my name in there too?
Okay, so you're gonna research best practice, Mark, and you're gonna connect with Ellen? Yeah.
Okay, contamination of the recycling stream. The Bowen's contamination is about as good as it gets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how we would get it better. You know, and we, you know, our folks who work there are pretty good at reminding people what the right things are to do.
There was that interesting little spiel on Facebook about somebody complaining about the attitude and
Oh, yeah,
and so on, but, and thinking that it was, or at least portraying the viewpoint that this was a business thing, that, you know, that it could be handled by staff doing all the sorting and whatnot. Yet we're coming at it from way before that. Historically, we've done it as a community to source separate as much as possible. And,
Wasn't that Ellen was saying that the compostable plastic and the plastic are identical and therefore they get put in the same
Yes.
place and
Yes.
that's the contamination?
that's a big issue.
It is, but that's it.
But she also mentioned that she took an initiative and created a request that plastic be brought to the recycling depot and separated in that sense. And they are very easy to mix up. But for some reason there was a mix-up and it all got mixed up. So she actually tried to start that initiative on Bowen Island. And there were people who would put their plastic in a certain container and everything, but it never, there was no follow-through in some way. So she wants to reinstate and ask for that to begin again.
Well, but would this be part of the one, our one before, do we need this as a separate line item?
I think it kind of makes sense to put it in the same.
I think it's in the same.
I think they both kind of came out of the same
Yeah.
idea, so. Because I think Ellen's big point was you go to some of the businesses and they have their recycled, their containers that say it's recyclable, but it's got the plastic lining and you can't put it in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is very complicated.
Yeah.
So good, oh, then, oh jeez, we're still early on. Okay, we've got to move along here. Energy efficiency, I think this is quite interesting, because we had, you know, our expert with us throughout, so that's not what we're talking.
Traffic policy.
Okay, so Maureen, what this was, and it was for rezonings. We talk about step 3. Step group 3.
Can you differentiate? Can you specify that it's specifically for rezoning? Or
Well, the policy that we referenced was the rezoning policy.
I'm not sure whether you specify a level of the step code for a community, or whether you can be that specific in terms of rezonings only.
So maybe that has to be researched and
Yeah.
determined.
So what we were looking for, basically with our discussion, was to try to figure out how we move forward. We've all, you know, all the North Shore folks are already on step code 3. So how do we move our people forward without undue hardship, but with showing some leadership in some areas to show that it could be done, kind of thing. And our inspector was with us for this discussion, and this was sort of one of the steps we thought we could take that shows, okay, when we're doing the rezoning and somebody's doing something, that this is part of our, so, I mean, we do have, we have, you know, the housing, the 15% housing is just a policy. It's not actually a bylaw for rezonings, that 15% affordable housing inclusionary policy. So presumably it could be something similar to that? I don't know.
I don't know either.
I don't know, step, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I mean, when I look at all that big list there, what I see are two things. One is working with the contractors and generating buy-in and support, and also understanding their needs. And then all of the other points have to do with finding an appropriate level of the step code that moves the community towards the level that it needs to be at by 2032 in an incremental fashion.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there may just be two objectives or two goals there. And ultimately, in terms of what this committee does, is it would help make a recommendation to council, and council would make the call as
Yes.
to what level it was at. So where that leaves us, I'm not quite sure. It may just be the second point, the implementation pathways,
Find implementation pathways
Yeah.
to BC Energy Step Code.
yeah, for the community and for rezonings.
Sorry, where's this one, right?
Yeah. And if there's something different that can be put in place for rezonings,
For the
Great.
community and.
rezonings. Does that make sense?
Sure.
And Steph, I don't know if you sent it out, but I sent over some examples of other policies and bylaws that
Yeah.
other governments have adopted. I mean, you can look it up on the Step Code website as well, but just
Yeah.
for examples.
And I was to share that with the committee.
Okay, well, that's good.
We were talking about posting on the website and I wasn't
Yeah.
sure where that landed.
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
But the policy options for incentives, and if we brought James Glave in, he'd rattle them off, no problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because that's his area of research
Yeah.
right now.
So Maureen, you're suggesting we drop the first box?
Yeah,
The
Whole
first-
thing?
the whole thing?
yeah,
Because that would be then something.
that'd be
we-
covered
Yeah,
under
covered.
the second.
And then develop a program to generate buy-in from local builders, like, we're not gonna develop a program ourselves.
Recommend.
Yeah, recommend a program. Well, recommend that, I mean, that's really part of it.
So the recommending is a method, I guess, isn't this, what we would do is recommend.
Well, we would recommend that,
The action,
we would recommend that we have contractor workshops and education of some sort. And that, but the municipality would be the one who would do that.
Yeah.
So recommend a program, that's fine, recommend a program. Recommend that the municipality develop a program to generate buy-in, something like that.
I'm just thinking generate buy-in.
That's a dodgy term.
We don't,
Engage.
they have to buy into it, they don't have a
Yeah.
choice, eventually it's gonna be the law, so we don't need to, we need to encourage them to be in,
Understand.
yes, understanding.
Okay.
I mean, I think what we were trying to do was to hurry the process along and bring the step codes in a little bit
Yeah.
before, which I think is good to try to get people motivated. But we need to, yeah, it's not generating buy-in, it's just
yeah, so
generating,
it's basically prepare them
Yeah.
for adoption.
Yeah.
and maybe encourage them to get on it sooner, but I mean, the point that they, and I think from what Glenn was saying, they already know, Glenn or Greg?
Great.
Glad. Oh, great.
Glenn.
It's okay. You said it right the first time, actually.
So, I mean, he was saying, most of the contractors are already on board anyway, they know what's coming,
Yeah, they know what's
so,
Well, we also had an EDC business breakfast with contractors that David
coming. Yeah,
was at, and the step code was one of the topics of conversation.
yeah,
So they do know it's coming, and there was some resistance, but
Yeah.
the bottom line in the conversation which we got to was, it's happening.
yeah.
And you have a choice at the moment as to whether you embrace that or whether you want to be left behind.
Right.
Because that's the bottom line, like,
Yeah.
you're left behind, like, you just,
But the other thing that Greg was really good at pointing out to them was, hey guys, you're pretty well all operating at step one to begin with.
yeah.
So,
Yeah.
meeting that first step is not going to be that much of a hardship given
Yeah.
the current practices.
Yeah, in fact, he felt that most are already above that level.
Yeah.
yeah.
So I'd shorten this, recommend that the municipality develop a program to,
Oops.
yeah,
To prepare local builders.
to prepare local builders.
For step code implementation.
Yeah, for step code, yeah.
Yeah.
And then you just ditch the rest, yeah.
And then I ditch the last 2 points.
Yeah, we don't need that. Well, the one thing about, like, do we want to propose something, and this is what we talked about last time, right?
Yeah.
like the last one, step 3. Setting some sort of a time, and our building inspector thought that that was feasible, to encourage that for new construction, obviously.
What about just saying, step code level 3 by 2021 at the latest? Because council might want to accelerate it,
Okay, good.
whereas if we say 2021, we're setting the bar lower than council might.
Yeah, okay.
So this is going.
Okay. So we don't have any names beside this.
Greg.
Yeah.
I think it's Glenn, actually.
The building
Yeah,
inspector.
was that-
Yeah, it's the building inspector. But we can't, I mean,
No, that was a joke.
He was on volunteering.
yeah.
How do you see that working, Sarah?
Well, like I had talked to Daniel about it, and we need council direction to look into researching options for step code. Other local governments that have done it have done like a consultation process with builders, like something we've kind of already started, I guess.
Yeah.
But again, we need like council
So maybe everything is a meeting member.
approval to do that.
No, this is really, we can make a recommendation to council, and then council decides what to do. That's really what we've got here. Okay, all right, let's go to transportation.
So here we got no thingy there.
Empty box.
There's nothing there, oh my gosh.
That's really, makes me
Step
feel.
You guys have been goofing off.
That's just, we don't know what the method is. It's just part of, it'll evolve.
Italy.
Well,
Okay.
I mean, we could have more workshops informing contractors about what step 3 is all about.
Workshops.
I mean, it's the same stuff, contractor workshops and education.
Yeah.
We can slap that in there, might as well. So we don't have an empty box.
Thank you. Transportation.
Okay, no, the transportation, I'm gonna make a recommendation, and this will, see what you all think about this. So if you go to our thoughts on so we're on into new boxes, and the way we did those before is we went into the stuff that we brainstormed way back 2 meetings ago. So here's what we have for transportation. Support the commuting community, advocate for an electric ferry, trails, walkway, stairs, and making Bowen more foot-friendly, encourage bike ridership as multi-use paths built in stages, encourage electric vehicle and infrastructure. Every single one of those things is in the transportation plan.
Oh, yeah.
So I think, yeah, basically we just encourage, support, what do we want to do
Encourage
with,
implementation.
of the transportation plan? If we don't need to start new things that the transportation, BIMTAC is already doing, because every one of those things, and everybody in BIMTAC knows that GHGs start from transportation on Bowen, so.
So would that then the objective actually be implementation of the transportation plan rather than the encouragement of it? Maybe I'm getting.
I think it's encouraged, because it's basically, what I'm suggesting is we ditch this in terms of a separate set of initiatives, because somebody else is doing it. We could
But we can say support.
support it, you know, when, let's say initiatives come up that we know are going to, for council, and BIMTAC is doing something, we hear about it, we might want to offer encouragement and support, or something like that, I don't know.
Understand.
I'm not sure what else we should say here, but we don't need to do what somebody else is already doing.
And support the Parks, Trail and Greenways Committee, because we do work on trails. They're not really transportation trails though, that's.
No, they're not
It's a
transportation.
different type of transportation.
Yeah. And then that's in another area, I mean, the parks plan is terrific. There's all kinds of stuff in there, again, we don't need to do stuff that the parks have already got in their plan, I don't think, yeah. So this moves us very quickly along in our agenda.
We need a break.
I just see that one line there, so you don't have any big boxes. That one, support ongoing initiatives.
Yeah, that's fine.
BIMTAC.
Yeah. I guess it could be, communicate with VinTAC as appropriate, as needed, something like that. So our last one is environmental protection. Or we also have community outreach, but we can talk about that too. So environmental protection, so Maureen, were you already familiar with that thing that we sent out today and had a look at, the Natural Assets Initiative?
Yeah, we had discussions about a year and a half ago with Gibson's,
Oh, wow.
the CEO
Yeah.
at Gibson's, who had made some presentations on that at different conferences. He is a really quite amazing and articulate person
Yeah.
who would be worth bringing over to talk about it. There also was a pilot project that was launched about a year ago where Gibson's was looking for partners for a pilot project.
Yeah.
And we made some inquiries. It wasn't a good time in terms of us being part of the pilot project, but who's the we in this case? Sue Ellen and I expressed interest in keeping the conversation going. So the natural asset management concept
Yeah.
is familiar to the last council and also to, I believe, to Raj and Kathy.
Okay, well, that's great. I mean, just before our meeting started, we kind of talked about what we were all looking at this day. So everybody was dabbling into here, and it was new for most of us. And it was, I mean, the concept isn't new for me, but this initiative was new for me. I didn't know
Yeah.
that this was.
I can track down the pilot project information
Yeah.
because I bounced back and forth with one of the Gibson's councillors on that. And there's quite a lot of background about what they were looking for in
Okay.
partners. And
Yeah.
we didn't have this committee. We didn't feel as
Yeah.
though we had the capacity and the authority
Yeah.
to take it any further.
So the general discussion we were having around this evening, just as we were starting, is that, you know, this whole environmental protection side, this is really, could be the core of that. And so I think let's hear some suggested actions. Is what about overall objective?
I just want to back up a little bit, in that asset management, to me, it goes beyond just environmental protection, I think, in the way that it's being implemented in local governments. So, but yes, as a subset of it, that's really where I wanted to clarify.
Yeah.
And yes, there are environmental assets to be managed or stewarded.
Yeah.
Or observed, yeah. Is that what you mean?
So let's look at what would our, what do we have already? So we had protection, let's have a look at what we have. Oh yeah, shoreline development permit area, site alteration bylaw, site alteration to discourage clearing too early, more assessment of environment for projects, CT species at risk, so a few sort of ideas. So let's come up with an overall objective for our environmental protection. Thoughts, ideas?
Protect the environment of the island.
I was leaning towards a sort of natural capital or something like that, but I don't know.
Preserve natural capital and maximize natural interest.
Preserve the natural capital that helps protect the island in terms of like healthy forests are not as susceptible to fires.
Yeah.
Healthy forests.
Yeah, we could have
Capture
something
water.
in there about the changing times. You know,
Yes.
it's obviously stresses from development and stresses from a changing climate. So
Yes.
within those two stresses, I don't know if we want to say that, but we could mention that within those two stresses, we want to ensure that our natural capital or nature is protected as well as possible, or something like that.
Preserve the natural capital as a way to combat climate change, the changing climate.
Support conservation development.
Yes, that's another one. Yeah. Yeah, we didn't have that as one of our, yeah, interesting. How did we
Yeah,
wait out?
it emerged right after we had
I
that
think
original
so, yeah.
conversation. Yeah.
One of the questions that I have, when this committee was established, one of the duties and responsibilities, point E, continue work on meeting targets for corporate carbon neutrality and reporting progress through the provincial climate action revenue incentive program. And I'm not seeing, maybe I'm missing it, I'm not seeing that reflected in this plan, the tariff reporting, which is a legal requirement under the Climate Action Charter. And I'm not seeing an alignment between what we're working on here and what was done in the community energy and emissions program, which is actually identified, there are specific steps that were identified for 2016, 2017, 2018. And there's some overlap, but I don't know if this plan has been started with that in mind.
No, it wasn't. We do have, Carrick was on our, when we did our post-it notes and so on, we had Carrick in there, but it was just sitting there by itself. Carrick reporting, accountability, make sure it's done.
I don't know where it fits in
I don't know
this.
where it fits in,
So,
because it's so, it can cover all of these areas.
Yeah. I mean, maybe it's like alignment, or accountability, or, I don't know, but there's a larger context here that has to do with reporting out and alignment with an established and an accepted plan for this area.
what about interfacing with like EMBC on that? EMBC?
Emergency management?
Yeah,
No, it's,
not specifically on, but on some of that, no?
EMBC's, no, this is,
Different subset, eh?
I mean, it could be related in terms of, there's a bunch of agencies that we might want to
In
connect
terms
with.
of partnerships, right?
It's not a partnership. The Carrick reporting is an annual
Yeah.
reporting required under the community charter. And you report to, it's administered through the Ministry of Municipal Affairs.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
I see.
Maureen, you're absolutely right. I mean, we are the Environment and Climate Action Advisory Committee. And so none of our headings so far have climate action or accountability around climate action. And so we need to create a new heading that has something like that.
Yeah.
So, and Carrick would be a sub-part
I'm
of
just
it.
doing
rather
that for a spaceholder.
Yeah.
Carrick is one. That document was in 2 agendas ago. Is that, do you want me to put that up there? Is it there?
No, it's.
No, we don't need to.
confused matters.
Maybe the category is basic climate action.
Yeah, the category, so take the climate action revenue report and put that as an action. We'll refine to see what it should say.
What are their reporting deadlines? Or when is the reporting period usually?
It's annual and you report around July.
Okay.
Yeah. And those, the prior reports are posted on the municipal website
Yeah.
under the climate action page.
Yeah. Should we call this climate action or should we call it climate action accountability? Or maybe just climate action?
The Carrick is definitely accountability.
Yeah.
The CEEP, the community energy emissions, that's more specific actions. And if this doesn't make sense, if this isn't ringing bells,
Yeah.
I'll send you guys the links to what this is, because we spent quite a lot of time putting together that plan. There were a couple of workshops involved with the Community Energy Association,
Yeah.
which we're members of.
Yeah. So I guess it would be CEEP implementation or, yeah. So the methods, I mean, that's basically, if it's a provincial, follow the guidelines if they, something like that.
And it's relevant in terms of the community outreach, because what you do when you do your CARET reporting is you say how much money you spent on taxes for the fossil fuels that you consumed. And when you report, you talk about corporate actions, municipal actions, and community actions that will help in terms of reducing greenhouse gas emissions. So it's a really good way of having an annual perspective on the accomplishments of a community. So like Peter's Express Bus was listed a couple of years ago as, hey, we did something good, and we were featured in the province-wide CARET reporting as, this is what one small community did and made an impact. So it brings together all of the, when all of the CARET reports come together, you get a really good idea of what other communities have done to advance their climate action objectives.
And then you get some money back.
Yeah. And you want to get less money every year because that means you're spending less money on fossil fuels.
So members assigned, let's just go to CARET.
Finance has to do part of that.
I mean, Maureen, you've led that in the past. I don't know if you want to have your name there.
Sure, yeah. You could put me and Sue Ellen, and then it ends up being Raj who submits the final report. But there's a brainstorming session that is good fun, you know, where you fill in some gaps.
And is that something you're doing regularly, like updating as these projects are being done?
We've done that for 3 years now.
Then CEP implementation. So, again, I don't remember all the actions that were part of that.
There's a ton.
Yeah.
So for 2018, what was identified was building code, educate and support compliance, skills training for local contractors, so that was buildings, stretch code implementation, that's the step code.
So these were all things for 2018?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Education for realtors on energy efficiency, renewable energy. Host a climate smart program delivery session.
So-
Land use bylaw update hasn't happened.
No.
So there's a bunch of stuff here that
So
it
this
comes
was,
out of sequence.
these were agreed to by council?
Yep.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm pretty well unaware of this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was the land use bylaw update related to?
The whole darn thing.
Okay, update everything, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah, there is some work to be
Ambitious.
done.
Supported truck share cooperative. There was a lot of interest in that, rather than everybody sort
Yeah.
of screwing
Right.
around.
Yeah.
Actually having a truck that could be
Yeah.
shared. Create shared workplace, and it's not code to reduce demand for commuting. Organics diversion to move that on island. Some sort of organizational structure for climate action, so that was this committee. So there are other sort of smaller objectives that we actually accomplished, but there's a
Okay.
lot on this list that
That have not been accomplished,
have
and we
not
could
been
just
accomplished, and
Yeah.
have clearly fallen off the radar.
have
Yeah.
fallen. All right, so, oh, look at this. Wow. Okay, so let's not get into the details, let's figure out what we should say in this. We need to.
I could go through it and identify any 2018, I guess, or 2019, since this is the work plan.
Yeah, so
and
basically we need to
include
review the 2018 work
Yeah.
plan and move any uncompleted items
Mhm.
into the 2019 work plan.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So that's
Yeah.
basically.
Revise
Yeah.
it.
And I can incorporate it into our work plan and then distribute it.
Okay,
You can
you can do that?
Yep.
All right, that would be excellent.
So we'll make a recommendation today and as amended for council to adopt this, and then you'll make the edits and send around by committee to agree on
Yeah.
this process.
Yeah, so just to finish this off, we're going to try to sort of finish this tonight, but it's obviously not gonna be completed. But what we'll need to do then is share your emails and sign off on it, so that we can then, yeah, we'll deal with the motion at the end of it, yeah, tonight. Okay, so CEP implemented, so it was review 2018 initiatives that are not completed and insert into 2019 plans. I don't think we need to create any new ones. There's a lot of heavy stuff there.
And partly it's delayed because at the time we put this together, the expectation was that the step code would be firm by the end of 2016, and that was not the
Okay,
case.
right.
So
It's
there
just
were a
done now.
bunch of things that
Yeah, okay.
resulted in some
Yeah,
delays.
yeah, no need to worry about what happened and didn't happen, we just need to have a look at what we need to do.
Yeah.
Okay. So, environmental, let's go zip back up to environmental protection. If we've had climate action, are we okay with those two things? Does that kind of, I mean, there's a lot of stuff
Yeah.
in there. Okay. And then, of course, we know the transportation, there's a ton in the transportation already being worked on. And we know the step code and all that stuff. So we'll come to community outreach at the end. Let's go back to environmental protection. So preserve natural capital. Okay, conservation development is certainly one that is an initiative. I'm happy to have my name beside that. Anyone else wants to jump on that one? I'm also on the APC.
Yeah.
Well, for now, who knows? And it's kind of the job of the APC, I would say, to do
I
this.
agree, yeah.
So I will, partnerships, APC. Yeah. And there's no budget. Well, no.
So in the previous list, we had some bylaws have been identified. Do you
Yeah.
want to just put a general term about bylaws, like as a strategic action review,
Yeah.
possible new bylaws? Or do we want to get into specific ones that have already been raised?
Okay, I'll just repeat them. So shoreline DP, development permit area, site alteration bylaw, and site alteration discouraging the clearing of land before the land is ready. Yeah, those are the bylaws that we talked about.
Right. I think the site alteration bylaw is pretty important. And I bring it up just because we have a lot of cases on the island where lots have been cleared, and then all of a sudden we get a big crop of invasive species. And I don't want to like pick on the muni or any developer in particular, but we have, you know, the firehouse site. There's thistle, burdock. It's just, you know, we have where the children's playscape is out in King Edward Bay, went crazy with broom. The golf course had the gorse. So, and I don't know what that looks like. I don't know enough about how we can regulate that. I know Squamish has a bylaw that they have a whole process. You have to go through and apply before you can clear a lot. But that applies if you've already got a house on it. So I don't know if it's possible or not. So, or some way to discourage clearing a lot, at least, you know, until you have a building permit, until you know what you're prepared to do something with the lot. It just doesn't stay fallow.
Yeah. Does anybody have background knowledge in this? I mean, we could do, just have someone do some research into the feasibility of something of this. I mean, that would be an initiative, because I don't have any background.
In my line of work, I've seen the transition over time from, let's call it not Bowen Court, Snug Cove House, or
Yeah.
the Abbeyfield model,
Yeah.
Fire Hall model, or look at first create a blank slate, which then designers can work on to put together some architecture. Also, realtors or developers in the past have decided to clear a bunch of trees in order to make it possible for them, based on their way of looking at things, to plan what the development is going to be. But the trend has been towards including the initial clearing in the development permit, and you need to have a development permit before you can get a building permit, and so there'd be that part being held up. And it's, I would say the application of that has been inconsistent, and it varies. Sometimes there's sort of the philosophy of asking forgiveness is better than asking permission. So, yeah, I think I would agree that there needs to be some sort of process established so that these damages don't happen consistently. On the flip side, though, on the invasive species and so on, such a large part of that is management afterwards. I was involved in the golf course way back, and we recommended umpteen times to control the gorse and broom, not to spread it, and now it's been spread wherever there was an excavator that took it from the original field down below.
And,
So-
in all fairness, the gorse was there before, before the golf, it was, it's not, I'm not, the intent is not to blame, but
Yeah.
you just see what happens when
Exactly.
you just nuke a lot and then you walk away for a couple of years. Invasives come in, so.
So do we need to put an action okay, so.
I just plugged in,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
just deleted.
Well, if we have let's speak to a site alteration by it. So it would be research to assess the feasibility of best practices around site alteration bylaws.
That's its own one.
Could be, well, just add that stuff in there.
And Maureen, you might know more about
Should that be in
it,
the
but I
motion?
believe council had already considered this a number of years ago, and then it kind of got dropped.
Council was looking at a steep slopes
okay.
bylaw, which became a hazardous slopes bylaw, which became a site alteration bylaw, given what the concerns were. And it was included as a priority in the last island plan. And at the last,
This council, you mean?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, so 2018
Okay.
island plan. And when we did our last progress report on the points in the island plan, the mayor who was responsible for working on that with Daniel said, no, we've decided not to do it. And I don't know why the decision was not to do it. I don't know whether there was something that the work that they had done suggested this isn't a good idea, but there has been prior work done on this that resulted in a decision that may or may not have been considered. So I think Daniel would know what's going on with that. And it's been in one iteration or the other on the books for over 2 years at least.
So would we call it, okay, so I guess we could, if we put a category called site alteration bylaw, that's good enough? And then it would just be conduct background research to assess feasibility of continued work on this, or something like that. We have no idea what the background is.
So it wasn't a council decision to not proceed, it was just,
As far as a council member, I was not part of the decision.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
So
I think it's
unfortunately,
probably review prior research on this, because I
Yeah.
think the research has been done.
okay,
yeah,
all right.
Yeah.
okay.
So unfortunately,
I can
this
do
is Sarah's job, because we
Yep.
can't,
Yeah.
it's checking with Daniel and finding out.
Yeah.
So let's have a look at what you got here.
So instead of conduct, it's review
Yeah.
existing research.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, good, that's good, yeah. And then put Sarah's name.
Why isn't it like that? Ah, okay. Sorry.
Hiccups.
These computers.
So I almost like that even better, that it's not just clear, it's steep slopes, it's
Yeah.
hazard,
Yeah. Okay, shoreline development permit area. Is that something we want to follow up on?
Yes.
There was some work on done.
Bonnie were keen on that, and I
Yeah.
just don't know what work was, the Green Shores approach to shoreline development was a priority. There were some workshops that were done 2 years ago on that, but beyond that, do you recall anything?
I don't think I know we looked into Tunstall Bay using your Green Shores approach.
Yeah.
It wasn't feasible there, there's not enough slope. So I don't know I don't think it went that very far.
Part of the context there too is that Fisheries and Oceans has a sort of a 15-meter zone they call the sort of environmentally sensitive backshore related to protection of fish habitat below the high water mark.
Below that, yeah.
Yeah, and the municipality doesn't have, other than maybe it's setbacks from the sea.
We have setbacks from the sea.
But that's about development rather than alteration or clearing of vegetation to the high tide line. And so there's a gray
That's
zone
right.
there,
Mhm.
and I think that's partly where this was coming from.
Yeah.
Much of Bowen is self-protecting because it's high bank water,
Yeah.
I think, it's too much. But there are some places which could,
And that almost makes it more important to protect those places, because there's not a lot of those places.
yes, exactly, they're
Right.
scarce and
Yeah.
rare,
Maybe give that to Sue Ellen.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Probably
Yeah,
know more.
yeah.
We already got one.
Yeah, Will got one.
Yeah, we gave them to Will, that's right. So,
So, the shoreline development permit area, if you could, was very beautiful.
maybe we could make it more general, like shoreline development permit area is a very specific approach. It could be assess background of shoreline protection mechanisms, feasibility mechanisms, or something like that.
Sure, yeah.
Something like that, and give it to Sue Ellen so she can report back and see what we tried, what we haven't tried, why not, what's feasible, what other people are doing, so on. I'm sure she knows, and it would be obviously part of the Isles Trust stuff.
Okay. Like that?
I think so. Yeah. And Sue Ellen over there.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Yeah,
I
the,
guess these research things are kind of methods, aren't they? The community research,
Yeah.
that's some methods as well.
the District of Seashell does have a marine areas development permit area, for example, and so whenever anything is on any waterfront property would be subject to that
Oh, really?
development permit area.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds like a shoreline development area, it sounds like we want to take more control over, like, almost away from the feds and the province and be the first line of defense against development, not against development, but responsible development.
But it would be, I mean, they have some mechanisms that are useful for protection, so it would be going beyond
Yeah,
what
yeah.
exists,
For sure.
particularly, on the land side of things.
Yeah, so adding local government as another line of defense, as you
Yeah.
say.
David?
Yes.
Under the support, can we go back to that for a moment? I have a question under
Yeah.
support,
Which one?
conservation development, the first one.
Okay, yeah.
So, over the past 5 years, I've been involved with emergency management.
Okay.
And what I've witnessed, and I think I would get some agreement from the people I've worked with, is the influence between, for instance, incidences on the island and the environmental influence of that, like how that affects the island. And I'm wondering if it would be of service or of use for us to look at that kind of effect as part of our conservation issues.
Not sure what you mean.
Well, what I mean is that when you know that certain events or certain effects, so for instance, let's take Bowfest, okay? It means quite practical, but it's not,
Yeah.
it's a real obvious one. And the effect of having that many people on the island, this and that, and there's certain things that start happening and start influencing the way the island is used, for instance. These aren't things that we think about, but there's an environmental concern sometimes that do occur. So, for instance, I might be asked to go sit and witness and go walk an area and pay attention, and is everything okay? So, when it comes to the conservation of the protection of the island, there's maybe a psychological or an influence that might be observed, that we might be able to tag on as, yes, it affects the island as this and that. I mean, it's not as tangible as some of the things that you guys are talking about, but I think it's something that gets discussed in a certain way, but it's not seen here. And I'm wondering if you think it could be something that
It's too intangible in my head so far.
is
What-
not tangible at all, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, so I'm not, how would you describe it? I'm not quite sure.
So what I would describe it as, and I'm sorry, I talked about EMBC. I thought we were still talking about that, and that's where I was coming in. But what I would see as a possibility is interfacing with the MVC so that if they know events and how it involves the island, for instance, we went to the Fire Smart,
Yeah.
right? That's how cisterns and all this kind of, but
Right.
these
Okay.
people are very well aware of the influence of events and the way the island gets touched. And I think it could be a good piece that there might be something there for us to support for them and them to support us.
Does everyone else know what EMBC is?
Oh, it's
I do.
Emergency Management BC.
Oh, yeah, I know.
It
Okay.
involves the
Yeah.
basic infrastructure of the island, the basic people and volunteers who help support the island in case of an event.
Yeah.
But it actually extends into the more subtle, watching over the island and paying attention to incidents.
Does that mean like tourism too, and like all of the summer
It could.
visitors, or is it just like events?
Not just events, no.
Okay.
It could, no.
Yeah.
It could be anything really, but it's
Yeah.
to ward off, let's say.
Yeah.
And be prepared for incidences. So it becomes really tangible after a while when you work on that level, that there is an influence.
Yeah.
And that these people are aware, and they don't talk about it much, but we could maybe, I don't know, it's just,
What would we do?
well, for instance, I could see a discussion when it's fire season. Well, it's obvious to us who takes care of the island when it's fire season. But if we're ECAC and we know that, for instance, we're working with cisterns, we want to have and implement what we're doing. There's obviously an interface there immediately with what we're doing. So I believe or see that we could probably extract in discussion, maybe we can help them. In this, the,
EMBC.
EMBC, as much as EMBC can maybe help us in understanding things that we don't see necessarily, that are more subtle things that we don't see.
I'm still having trouble.
So you're saying like support cisterns and partner with EMBC?
That's the tangible stuff. You
Yeah.
got it, right? And they'll be extremely happy because they've already talked about it, a little bit.
So
And-
should we put them, if we go back up to that part, should we put them as a potential partner? Is that,
Or,
That way, that
yeah,
way.
as an interface, as a partner in perhaps a way of discussing incident or how do we prevent it? We're trying to protect the island.
Hmm.
And the issue of incidences keeps rising all the time. We were told that the Fire Smart, that the likelihood of a fire is very, very, very high now for us.
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Very smart. I think it's good.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Well,
I was gonna say.
Now, that's the NBC's job, but I feel that we have a possibility of an interface there in the care of the island. And
One of the things that you might want to look at, all of us might want to look at again, is Jen McGowan, who's the emergency program coordinator, municipal staff. She put together a report called Hazards,
that's right.
Risks and Vulnerabilities.
That's right.
And it's really, it is worth looking at because it does address risks of fire, of earthquake, of landslides, so on. So it relates to the environmental protection part of this really quite directly.
Thank you.
And it's a very solid document, well researched and
So where would you put it, Maureen, would you put it in more well?
I don't think it has to go up there. I think it's just hey, take a look at that
And
document.
in
Okay.
conservation, that's where I saw it, what you're doing before.
So we have to.
Where you were
there.
before.
Oh, conservation development?
Mhm.
Well, conservation development is very
Protection,
specific.
it was under protection, is what I thought we were looking at.
Yeah, we were.
That
We
is
just
what
went up
we're
to where the
looking at.
That's
fire
right,
was.
environmental protection, that's right.
So that was the,
Conservation development it's quite a specific approach
Right.
around land use management. Land use.
I'm gonna put capital letters on that to be more clear.
Sure, be more clear, yeah.
That's my mistake.
So
Would,
perhaps the strategic action is just to review the hazardous risks and vulnerabilities assessment. And that could hook up with EMBC as a potential partnership, because that certainly is the way that document was conceived. It was conceived in the context of
Okay.
emergencies, not specifically incidents like a public event, but in larger terms.
I think
Sorry.
that, oh, sorry, go ahead.
For the action, what did you say the method was? I'm
Just
sorry.
review the hazards, risks, and vulnerabilities assessments, or whatever the exact title is. You would know that more.
I know it,
Yeah, there you
but
go.
I was in for the next box.
I think that also relates to the municipal natural asset planning, because my understanding is that they also assess the impact of losing the natural asset to
Yeah.
things such as
Yes.
natural
Yeah.
hazards and that kind of thing.
And I just made a note, the vulnerability part, like, back to the site alteration bylaw, like, let's not develop on a steep slope, because
Yeah.
you can have landslides, or,
And Denise, I've got you there,
Mhm.
and
I think that the assessed background to shoreline protection feasibility, I think you can ditch the more assessment of environment.
okay, which was a different bullet anyways, it's what, one to one.
We haven't had the municipal, whatever the thing is we were looking at,
Natural
the,
asset.
The Municipal Natural Assessment Initiative.
Something like
natural
that.
asset
Yeah.
initiative.
The new, I almost got you there.
And what I'm not clear on is, I imagine council would have to provide direction that this is something
oh yeah,
they would
Right.
want to take on.
Yeah.
But maybe if that was the case and council did,
yeah.
the
That's-
committee could assist in
It's assets.
identifying
Sorry.
the assets and that kind of thing.
We could, what I'm saying?
Assist in identifying what those assets
Yeah.
are.
This would be a big job.
Yeah.
If we wanted to do this, this
Yeah.
would be a big job and a big
Yeah.
important job.
Yeah.
So we would have to be, we'd have to be offering to work on this.
I would work on it.
Yeah.
The beauty is that there is a framework in place.
Yeah.
Right?
That's,
Yeah.
that's what, that's why I volunteered to lay down, right?
Well, it's very educational.
Oh, no, for sure, yeah.
Should we say recommend, or should we do our own work right now of assessing the opportunity for Bowen to be integrated into, or to,
Sure.
not integrated into, to what, to conduct,
Participate
to
in-
participate?
Because it sounds like council was already interested in this, Maureen, you were saying.
Interested, but with a warning, which is that we are behind in terms of just the regular asset management
Yeah.
that we need to do.
Yeah.
And
Right.
there's no way that this will take priority over just doing asset management. This would be, it would be an add-on.
Now, part of that program is that they come in and help you do an asset management of your natural capital, I think. Some of the reading I've done. I don't know, I'll look at it.
Yeah, that wasn't my impression.
Did you hear that? Mark's got his name there.
Mark's up. Yeah. But, so what do you, just do some,
All right.
Background research.
Background,
Background
yeah.
research, yeah. Look at what others, look at who the, as you suggested, are there other people who will do this work for us? What does it cost?
Yeah,
Is it free? Has most of it already been done? We could apply it here,
Hmm.
under simple check marks, and so on.
and report? Ha,
Yeah.
ah,
sorry. Just sitting in your
thought
room.
I thought, oh, they'll never know.
Yeah.
See, that's a good
And
idea.
maybe this isn't possible, maybe we need council direction to do it, but I wonder if we could just start an inventory of things that we consider natural assets? I don't know.
So would that be Parks and Trails, something
That would be,
exist in
that could,
there?
yes, that'd be a good,
It might be
partnership
something in your
for sure.
folder,
Oh, okay.
in your new folder.
Oh, good to know.
Yeah, well, it's reflected, it's part of the parks
yeah,
plan.
it is part of the parks
And
plan,
there are a series of goals associated with
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Good to know.
for sure.
So support implementation of the parks plan, like they did with the transportation plan.
I know something, you know, if we need to mention,
Okay.
I'm not sure.
As part of environmental protection,
Okay.
I think so.
Think so?
seems to make sense.
Yeah.
Or
Okay.
environmental parts of the park plan?
Well, no, there is a natural capital section to the
All
Parks
right,
Plan.
okay, let's have a new line that, yeah, support implementation of the Parks Plan. Does it have a full name, the Parks, is it
I think
just the
it is
Parks
just the
Plan?
Parks
It's the
Plan.
Parks Plan.
Yeah.
Not just the park. It's not just the park, it's the Parks Plan.
Yeah.
But that's great, I mean, so there is all this existing work out
Yeah,
there,
yeah.
and it just needs to be brought in here so that we've got those
Yeah.
cross-references.
Okay, I think this is a fair amount of work.
I think, like, can you stop saying your good ideas?
Yeah.
I was actually just thinking about the comments you made at the beginning.
I know, I'm
Let's
worried,
not-
I'm completely worried now.
Well, that's
Well,
easy to support.
Yeah,
The carrot and the seep is gonna take up a lot of,
it's gonna take.
it's gonna be a big thing,
I know.
so.
Maureen, I'm not sure if you heard the comments right at the beginning. I was just sort of worried about, all too often, councils and committees give themselves a giant work plan,
Yeah,
but then can't do it all.
yeah.
But anyway, let's just go to the public awareness. I forget, we had one called public.
Community engagement.
Community engagement. I mean, there's community engagement on a few of these pieces already. So I'm not sure that we need
Oh, community outreach.
community outreach. Like, we've got the carrot already covered somewhere else, right? Yes, we have it right there. So do we, give me
It
some
seems
thoughts
like
here.
most of them are incorporated elsewhere, but if there's,
I think it was from that.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, let's see what did we have there. Green information strategy, oh, that's plastic, we've covered that. Green infrastructure, we just talked about that. Zero waste tour. Oh, well. I mean, that's a possibility, but that would be part of some of the work we were doing on zero waste maybe. Environmental stewardship collective, evaluating natural assets, we just included that. Stewardship collective. Volunteer, yikes.
Maybe that's 2020.
Yeah, this was a bit of a brain dump.
It was a brain dump,
Yeah,
well, all
yeah.
kinds of things here, all kinds of things, I think we. All right, where do we wanna go now?
Well, before we jump to the community action, I think it's really important to keep the climate conversations going. I don't know if that's-
Absolutely.
Mhm.
But
Do we need council for that?
why not have that in climate action?
Yep, that'd be good.
Yeah. Good point.
No,
Which is right below.
Oh,
It's
sorry.
right below where there it is.
No.
Yeah, well, let's have a new line. Was this you, Mark? No, yeah, what were your words? Continue climate?
Continue the climate conversation. Yeah,
Yeah,
keep them going.
yeah.
who organizes those now? I know it's, are both of you involved
Maureen?
in it?
I've been
Yeah.
organizing them, and we've done anywhere from 1 to 3 a year. So all the videos and presentation slides are up.
Yeah.
So the committee could help assist in identifying topics
Yeah,
and I guess speakers potentially.
organize events as appropriate, as opportunities arise, or something like that, as opportunities arise.
Is that done through council or is that something where?
It was just done because I did it.
Okay. It doesn't surprise me.
Welcome to Maureen.
Yeah,
Nobody approved it, but nobody objected.
okay, great. Yeah.
Apologize later if needed. Okay, this is a big list. What should we do now?
So,
I mean, we've got a list that's big. We've got some names beside actions. We did a little bit of editing in the first part, but now we've added a whole lot.
Yeah. I think we should think about prioritizing things and
Well, there's some stuff that's mandatory, but the carrot report
Yeah.
must happen.
that, yeah.
Okay.
So that's essential,
okay, so timing on that, we will say July,
thereabouts.
summer 2019.
Yeah,
Sure.
But also
And
updated
budget.
regularly, right? You said until,
On
but that's when
highway.
the report's
yeah.
completed, I suppose.
Yeah.
But we just do, in the past, we've just done a brain dump.
Okay.
Um,
Just before that.
Okay.
two rounds and then a report.
Okay, good to know.
I'm gonna go here to see it from here.
Okay.
And is there a budget associated with that? Not really?
Remember the carrot?
Yeah.
No, we get money as a
Yeah.
result of doing it.
Okay, so let's do this guy's 0.
There we go.
But a
That's
cost
boss.
effective committee, yeah.
SEEP implementation, big pile of stuff.
I assume the SEEP doesn't actually go into the budget for each of the initiatives that are proposed. Is that
No,
correct?
it's a high-level document.
Mhm.
You don't report out to anybody on it. It's just, this is the plan that looked good in 2015, 2016, guiding document.
So council hasn't budgeted for the things that are
Council
identified?
has not budgeted for any of this.
Okay.
Oh, we got 2019 things.
Yeah.
And I mean, it ends in 2020, so we're closing in on needing to update it.
Wow.
And maybe when I go through this, I can inventory what has been done.
Yeah.
guess
I was just-
There's
Yeah.
some stuff.
Yeah.
that's
So I
on
don't,
there.
I just saw a sustainability checklist, I'm not sure
Yeah.
if that's been
No.
done, and that's 2017.
No.
Should I go back to the?
Okay, I'm not quite sure what to do with this because there's so much there that
Right.
we need to then consider how on earth we get this done.
It
So,
sounds like you're
right
thinking
now-
of doing that. Is that right, Sarah?
Which one? This is.
That of going back through
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, I will
Yeah,
go through, that was one
Sarah's
of the.
gonna do that,
Yeah,
yeah.
I'll go through it and see.
Would it be helpful to set up a subcommittee for the CARE reporting
Yes.
Mhm.
in the SEEP? We have a few people like,
Well, actually,
I don't know.
Maureen, we could do it as a group here. I
Yeah,
think this is probably,
yeah.
we probably should.
Yeah, I mean, what we've done in the past is Bonnie and Sue Ellen and I sat down and thought up as much as we could, and then just sent a question to some of the community groups,
Yeah.
what have you done in the last year
Yeah.
that moves us towards this? And
Yeah.
then drafted it, revised it, and then had the finance folks pull together the financial side of things. And it has to come to council.
Mhm.
So it needs to be confirmed by council
Yeah.
as being accurate.
Yeah.
And sometimes they don't know if
Yeah.
it's accurate or not. So
Yeah. So we do a brainstorm here, then we send it off to Parks Committee and the Transportation Committee and see what they can add.
Was there not one of the climate conversation
Yeah, there was.
days? Was,
one of the climate
Yeah.
conversations when we resumed doing this,
Yes.
Yeah.
we did a climate conversation on it because we didn't know what was going on.
Yeah.
And it was a way of raising
yeah,
awareness.
Yeah,
of,
for sure.
Oh, okay, this is
Yeah.
happening again.
yeah.
So we could do a climate conversation on it,
Yeah.
and that's kind of cool.
Yeah,
because
it is.
We did get some
I think so, yeah.
suggestions.
I was at that and I thought there was a lot of really good stuff there.
Yeah. Yeah.
What was
you-
the timing? Do you start this in May or June?
No, more like February, March.
Oh, okay. That-
Yeah. I just found the information about the pilot projects for the Municipal Natural Assets Initiative.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm just gonna send it to you.
Okay.
Okay,
Great.
Send it to this computer and then I'll send it to that computer.
But I wouldn't worry too much about the care work reporting, it's just that you have to do it.
Yeah. Okay, what should we could go through this ourselves, and, but we've got a little bit of time left, maybe it would be worth going back to the top and just thinking, okay, how much time would this take
Mhm.
in terms of our own resources or anyone else's and Sarah's resources and so on, and just work our way down quickly.
Okay.
It'd be nice to see it all at once, it's the trouble. You see the pieces, each piece sometimes like, yeah, it seems feasible. It's putting them all together that becomes the troubling part. All right, let's look at water. So we're trying to encourage cisterns. Sarah's gonna check out, see what Sunshine Coast did. Will is gonna do some research into this. And then, oh yeah, Alan, you're gonna check about the rainfall aquifer data. Aquifer is misspelled, I don't know how to spell it though.
So am I getting rid of the NBC here because we put it down the other place?
Okay. I'm gonna check with the garden club, but you know, if we get some stuff, do we work through the garden club? Do we try to do it more broadly? I guess we'll figure that out at the time. And then education to the public. So
That's
Laura's
regarding,
gonna check with the school.
is that water
Yeah.
conservation? Water, what does that say?
Yes. Consciousness.
The other thing you might want to look at, Laura, is all the material that Metro Vancouver produces on water conservation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because we currently, we adopted
Level 3.
the water guidelines
Yeah.
from Metro, although we don't have any teeth to enforce them. But they've got great public education material, and the communications coordinator here already distributes it fairly
Yeah,
regularly.
yeah.
We can do it.
Yeah.
And most of the schools I can.
And last time we'd spoken, I mentioned that there was an interest in a water school, which is
Yeah.
a program,
Yeah.
a bigger program.
Right.
So I'd be most willing to, sit with you and
Yeah.
chat with you and
So
help.
the
make
your
you
name
better.
should go in there too. Then,
Yeah, it would be happy to do that, for sure.
See how.
Yeah, because that's a big thing I need to look into,
Yeah.
the water school.
It looks pretty cool to me,
Yeah,
what it could be maybe.
yeah, I think there's a lot that can be done with
Just had a thought about partnerships for the cistern thing. We were talking about like this the whole Sunshine Coast $500 thing. Like would Emergency BC, like would they provide funding for that?
For cisterns?
Like,
It's
is it
possible. I can look
possible?
into the funding options
I don't know,
as
like-
well.
Because I know one of the things that they were talking about is everyone should have kind of like a sprinkler
Yeah.
that runs off your cistern.
Runs off your system. Yeah.
Like I don't,
Some
Yeah.
cool ideas.
yeah.
Or shared ones in a neighborhood, where you have houses really close together. They can maybe even, some kind of resource where people can, gather people to say, maybe you want to buy one for your area or get one or.
Anybody know how much, so you get a $500 rebate or discount, what one actually costs, that size? I haven't-
Depends, I'd like to know more details.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
it ranges from, it depends on what it's made of and how big it is and,
And all the other elements of the rainwater harvesting
yeah.
system.
Yeah. I mean, when you think of, how quickly a year zips by, and it's very quick. On the cisterns, we might have done a bunch of work, we might have found out how much things cost, where you might get a little bit of money and so on, but we're not gonna have any cisterns in people's houses within a year. It's just not gonna happen. But we might have found out some good programs that we could convince someone to do some funding and get some, so in other words, it's a bit of a long-term thing, but it really is actually a long-term need for Bowman. It's something that, is going to be necessary more and more over the years. So it's certainly worth doing all the work, I think.
it. So far,
So budget-wise, we're trying to figure out how to allocate some
We don't,
monetary.
yeah, I mean, if we don't need to have a budget for things, if we don't think we're gonna spend any money, but if we do want to do something that will require some money, we've got to put it in here because it will have to go into the budget process. And, council will look at it and decide whether it's feasible or not, from a budget perspective.
I just looked up cisterns
Okay,
with the 4,500 gallon capacity, that's the minimum they'll support, $4,000.
yeah,
So you're looking at a $3,500 plus tax
Yeah.
commitment
yeah,
on the part of individuals.
yeah,
Not cheap.
no.
Plus installation,
Yeah.
if you get
And
someone to do it.
installation, I know.
Yeah, and all the
And all the
dimensions of the
detailing.
gutters.
It's tricky. Not sure what to recommend here. I mean, I'm thinking, yeah, I mean, I've got a big garden, I could sure do with one, but I haven't taken that step yet. And my water bill, no matter how much water I use, it would take 1,000 years to pay off $4,000. Yeah.
Perhaps an idea would be to contact Laura, ENBC, and Sarah, and what would they recommend for the island? What would their ideal vision for the island in terms of to do with that? And what's the minimum they would need to begin with? So maybe we can range,
From a fire perspective.
yeah, from a fire perspective as to what we could project for our first year, second year.
Yeah, it'd be worth finding out what kind of sizes we need.
Mhm.
And, well, what the Sunshine Coast did would be interesting to see what they did. That would help us, because they're looking at the same situation. Basically, fire protection, water shortage.
Another things that isn't touched on in that section is metering of water consumption in all of the municipal water districts.
They're not all already metered.
Are they not?
Not that I'm aware of.
I have no idea. The ones I've always been in are.
Yeah.
Do you know, Steph?
So you're talking about smart metering? So like a Wi-Fi control?
No, I'm just
No.
talking about metering of consumption.
Yeah,
consumption
there's
meters.
a meter.
All of them are metered?
Yeah, that's how you get the bills.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think everyone's.
It's not in real time, but
yeah,
as a
the end of the
result,
month.
everyone can find out how much it is.
We have correspondence that just came through from Michael F.
Right.
Do you recall that?
No, I know Michael, but I don't.
It was, it might not have come to you yet.
No.
It was regarding the minimum that he had to pay that was not related at all to his consumption.
That, I think he's in Kobe,
Mhm.
so he's talking about where they start, they're metered all along, but every district has a different rate at which you start
Threshold?
charging. Yeah,
Right.
threshold.
Okay, so it's the
So he's
tier
saying
one,
the
tier
co-
two.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, it's not the thing that Kristen did, just for, let's say Kobe, for example, they start charging at a certain point at the threshold, it's quite a large threshold. So the only people who go over and actually start paying extra over their $205 per third of the year
Mhm.
are the massive gardens
Mhm.
and probably like illegal suites or massive families or daycares or something. It's very unusual to go over. So I think for some reason I saw this email as well, I think what he's saying is that it's, how can they're so much lower, that the threshold should be
I
lower.
read that somewhere too. Maybe he put it on social media? And I
Maybe.
feel like I read that recently, and we're on Cold Bay Water. and
Yeah.
It might have been
just how
So it's, I
it
think,
goes.
it's more about the way that we're structuring our billing than it is about because it's
Then it is
metered.
about just metering.
Yeah.
So restructuring the,
Water, like promoting water conservation, water usage practices.
Just don't know enough about where we all are on this.
Yeah, and a related point, Maureen, is that there are non-municipal water distribution systems which may
Yeah.
not be metered.
yeah,
Plus, there are all those
wells.
Well,
non-system,
Yeah.
they're just individual ones, which
Mhm.
aren't, nobody knows how much gets used.
And this kind of ties into the one below, where we're trying to figure out, well, what is our situation? Maureen, I don't know if you heard, I was chatting with John Reed a while ago, and he said he actually drilled a whole bunch of wells,
Yeah.
but they're not being used. Do you know about those at all?
Yeah, my understanding is they're all across the island, they weren't monitored, it's been over 10 years.
Yeah.
They need to be worked on to get them live again,
But it
for the
would
purposes of
be, it would be
monitoring.
feasible probably?
I don't.
We don't know. Okay, but that's one of our, we
We talked about that.
Yeah, it's, they're adopt a network of groundwater monitoring
Yeah.
wells.
Yeah, so I'll have to check with public, what public are you
I
talking
think
about?
that was,
What
what's that?
what were we talking about? Yeah.
John Reed?
Public Works,
We have Public Works there.
Public Works, and I don't want to mention someone's name, I'll have to check with Public Works
And
and,
developers.
Drafters.
and- yeah, and developers.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay. So that would be useful, obviously, to see if we can get a handle on things, so that would certainly be worth doing. I think it's worth pursuing the cisterns, but it's obviously, it's just such a big investment. It would be good getting the data and finding what other people are doing and seeing what we can do there.
And so the budget on that item I think is
I-
at this point.
We don't know at this point, no. We're certainly not gonna go to the municipality and say, hey, put in $10,000 so you can start giving people, I mean, we're just not going to.
So polite.
But maybe we don't need to be thinking in terms of 4,500 gallon cisterns.
Yeah,
Maybe get something that's half that size.
Yeah, yeah,
or
that's-
half as expensive.
yeah,
And we had $5,000 coming back on Carrot.
we can,
That could be, 10
yeah,
cisterns,
yeah,
first come, first served.
yeah,
Could be something, right?
yeah, yeah, so that's good.
Yeah,
So at least if we know,
Yeah.
no, don't put a budget in though.
because Alan, you had said
This is
that
money
Sunshine
coming
Coast
in.
was
No,
1,000.
actually,
You know, when you mentioned 4,500, I might have been thinking, anyway, I was probably
Yeah,
confused on the
'cause
value.
That, your number sounded low, but your number sounded high with what they were, I'll look up.
Yeah, okay.
Well, that's Google research.
So-
Probably well
All right,
known.
let's move past water. I think water's kind of reasonable what we've got here. There's some things that are longer term, but there's some stuff definitely we need to do. So let's go to the next one.
Oh, well, what do we?
Waste management.
Budget line, hold on, so everything's zero.
Yeah. I don't think we,
So you know
Yeah,
what,
we
why don't we
need
just
budget.
delete the timing column? This doesn't seem to be.
Should we have a
I
priority?
think we can do that
thing,
later,
though?
just don't worry about that.
Okay.
should we do what?
Like like, to me, the aquifer, getting the aquifer data, because that's,
Low, medium, high?
yeah,
I agree.
because that's something you want,
I
you want
agree. We
you
need
to
to
start
bring that
gathering the
back.
data.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
before-
should we change this
Change
to
it to
priority?
priority and-
Priority, good idea.
And direct
Ooh.
impact.
Yes, yeah.
So let's just, priority scale, 1, 2, 3? Or just put PPP for triple priority or what? what do
High,
you wanna
medium,
do?
low,
Sure,
or,
yeah. Let's do that. Let's-
Oh, there we go, high, that's good.
So this one, medium?
I think by saying one of them is important, we're sort of saying one of them is important, and I don't think we need to then
Yeah.
ditch the others or say they're really low or anything like that. I think we just have one as high. It's
And
not
that
the most
probably,
important.
that would probably work if we just pick one thing
I agree.
in each category, then that.
We want to make sure this is done because it gives us the data we need,
Yeah.
something like that. All right, let's look at waste.
Sorry, I missed that. Priority impact?
Looking at waste.
you're good.
Waste, okay.
That's substantial steps towards zero waste. Zero waste, blah, 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 blah.
In terms of doability, the biochar part is pretty quick. That's not necessarily a priority, it's just, it's a low
No,
hanging fruit.
it's low hanging fruit. It's not, I wouldn't put it as a high priority, it's, because it's a cool thing to do. But this, like this the big hit is this one.
Yeah.
That's the big hit, if we can do it.
And I'd actually like to put my name down to volunteer for that one as well.
Okay.
Yeah, right.
Because I've been kind of working, I went to see the
Yeah.
digester and
You've already been.
and work with.
Yeah, you
Louise.
saw it in Calgary and so on.
It's my baby.
And, the idea of plastic, we certainly want to do the work with the Ruddy and so on, and they, have a look and see what, but I don't want to have two things inside, because we just said we tried to put one.
Yeah.
And I just thought of that, but
It
I
ties in.
thought, yeah, but
It
that's.
kind of
a-
ties in.
Yeah. I mean, it does tie in, so.
Yeah,
So is
And
there,
it kind of, as we're talking with
Yeah.
the, I mean, it kind of, because it almost sounds like Ellen wants to just run with that one. Like, she just needs somewhere for it to go. And
Yeah.
she's happy to take that on, because she's done most of the research anyway.
yeah.
So, we'll see. You know what, leave that one, the one is high, and then hopefully that one just piggybacks, just naturally.
Yeah, what's interesting in that case is that the Ruddy's already doing it, right?
Yeah, exactly, right?
should this have budget beside it since it's involving
We have no idea, we're not,
Oh,
we're
yeah, lots of
not
money
gonna
there.
put in,
Lots of money there.
the,
I mean, that's,
There's a couple of trips to Calgary.
the thing is, we're not gonna be asking the municipality for a
You're not
budget on
looking for
this,
discovery.
because we have no idea. But what we want the municipality to do is to look into the feasibility of this, and we're, like what Louise has said, is that from a value perspective, it's value neutral, it's the same costs or whatever. But, that, we don't know that exactly, we're not experts.
Hmm.
That's what she's saying, and so that will be part of the discussions with the contract.
Yeah.
Maybe there's probably a payout period, 7 years, I don't know. But we're not asking for money. Do we all agree?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, energy efficiency. Okay, the step code's super important.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're all interrelated.
They're all interrelated, yeah.
Hi, hi, hi.
Yeah. This is, of all the things we want to do, this is one of the really important ones. I'm not quite sure what our role might be, but we want to be prodding everyone and helping.
But you know what, if you just have create pathway to meet step 3 of the BC Energy Step Code, that takes care of the other ones, does it not?
It does.
Okay.
It
Well,
does.
you only get high
It
ones.
does.
Yeah,
Right.
right?
That covers-
If you get there, you've already
We've got
done it. so-
Yeah, okay, good. All right,
Oh, I'm exhausted.
So we got no names there.
You're right, Alan, it is
Responsible
1,000 gallons.
accountability.
Well, I know with the
4,500
step
liters.
code, it's something that,
So-
like, I've spoken with Daniel about, but
Yeah.
I know it still needs to come from council, but I think, I'm not sure what actually the next steps are, but.
I think
once we
this
get
is
more-
something we, it's not one of us is gonna suddenly become an expert in step code. It's something we as a committee have to come up with some sort of recommendation
Oh,
to
yeah.
council.
On the boxes.
And you know what, a partnership would be Glenn,
Yeah.
building inspector. Like he knows, yeah, Greg, is it Greg?
That's Glenn.
Glenn.
It's Greg, Glenn is the pup, he's Greg.
Oh,
Yes,
Glenn?
yes, it's confusing,
Now
yes.
it all comes,
Yeah.
now I see.
And both Cormier.
Glenn's
is
the
the
last
last
name,
name.
Greg
Yeah.
Cormier.
Glenn and
Okay.
Oh
Greg.
my gosh.
Yeah,
No wonder.
it is a problem.
Okay.
Yeah,
Oh, I
No
have
wonder
the
the
wrong name.
photographs
so
are
that's, I think actually he was identified as the wrong name in our
Yeah, in the minutes.
agenda.
Oh, was he?
Yeah.
I didn't-
I wasn't sure.
No.
Yeah, he wrote Glenn.
Yeah.
That's why I thought it must be Glenn.
I'm glad it's not me. It's
But
not
it
me.
says the other one,
Yeah, the minutes?
so I wasn't
No,
sure.
actually
It
delegation.
says
Oh, it does say Glenn.
But it's Greg.
Where does it say Glenn?
I hope he's not
Nowhere.
watching right now.
That's not in attendance.
Okay, so now I feel very, very.
Oh, yeah.
disappointed.
My fault.
So,
I
Okay,
thought they
yeah.
do both.
Tell us, what are the real names?
Greg, Glenn.
Okay.
This is wrong, we're gonna unadopt them and readopt them as
Okay.
amended.
Yeah.
Okay,
Good, thank you.
so building department all the way, are there other partners?
It's building department heads.
Yeah. And we're not identifying a specific member, it's just
No.
all of us.
Yeah.
And maybe if we do get council direction to look into consultation or something along
Yeah.
those lines, we could bring the consultation strategy for review to the committee or something like
Yeah.
that, to see if
Yeah.
you have suggestions or
Exactly.
that kind of thing, yeah.
Okay, transportation, that was easy.
Oh, so ongoing initiatives,
Yeah.
there's a sign. So that's super high priority for this one category.
And David, you're on that committee, so maybe you
I
could
am. Yeah,
provide us updates
yeah,
with things
Okay.
going on there.
Sure.
Yeah.
if I stay on the committee, who knows what's
Oh,
going
yeah.
on.
that's
sure.
Okay, architecture,
We're using
okay.
our methods here.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
We've ended up a lot in that category.
Yeah.
You read that?
Yeah. Just blending.
Yeah.
Is this my
It's tough.
Under that last bullet, support implementation of the Parks Plan, it's really all of us, isn't it?
Yeah, no, we're just like the other one, yeah. So of all these, I'd say the municipal natural assets initiative could be the big one
I think
here.
so.
And that's.
Because that really affects,
It covers all kinds
Yeah.
of territory. Yeah, and it would be a lot of work if we end up doing something and helping council in this.
Does that have a budget? Or we're not doing any budget?
I don't. We just don't know enough. I mean, maybe
Yeah.
that will need a budget.
I
In
know.
fact, it probably
It's
will
hard.
need a budget, because you'd be hiring a consultant to do some analysis. And we saw about 4 names there, the Suzuki Foundation and several others. I don't remember the others. Some of them are presumably engineering firms or something like that who can do stuff.
Town of Gibson's is one of them.
Town of Gibson's was one of them, yeah. but we don't have enough information
No.
to recommend anything like that.
Yeah.
I think that's okay. I think this is a reasonable list of stuff.
Super high.
Didn't we put
Oh,
that
no,
into?
that was-
We moved that elsewhere, I think
Didn't we
we
move that
can
into
delete
climate
the
action? I think we
community
did.
outreach section, I think.
Because we kind of covered community outreach in all the sections, I think.
It's okay, I can reformat this or whatever.
Oh, God. It's all right, I can't stand it. Carry on.
Ah, there you go.
Oh, that.
Perfect.
I'm about to change the objective.
Do it.
Yeah.
Just do it.
Nike after me.
Oh,
Be across the board.
yeah.
Okay, let's-
Report and implement.
Is there another one below that? What do we-
Yeah, we talked about the climate conversations and keeping
Yeah.
them.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
Oh,
So the overall objective, let's come up with some objective here. What do we want Bowen to do in terms of climate action?
Save the planet.
Okay? All by ourselves?
Yes. We got this. Yeah.
How about integrate Bowen into global climate action initiatives or something?
Okay?
That doesn't altogether relate to the 3 points that follow, which
So
has to do with accountability and
Good.
outreach.
True.
Take responsibility for global climate action initiatives.
I did.
You can,
Be responsible in global climate.
yeah, basically we're talking about measuring and reporting on substantial actions to address climate change. Now, interestingly, these are all to do with what people call mitigation, which is really means prevention. And we're not talking about adaptation.
Right, and when we first met, we talked a bit about that.
And that's true,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, CAREF reporting is prevention, emissions reduction, CEP, emissions reduction, climate conversations could be about anything. Conservation development is about, one of the drivers is, and the water stuff is a driver. Yeah, I think we're kind of covering an adaptation in a bunch of areas. I think we're okay. We don't need to save, yeah.
Yeah, and similarly, fire preparedness.
The fire thing and everything, yeah.
The CAREF reporting has, it does talk about adaptation
Oh, does it?
and mitigation, and it uses those terms specifically.
Okay.
So you're asked
Okay.
to identify.
Okay,
It's all good.
So it's
okay, good.
So
Okay.
it's-
Yeah. All right, we're okay then.
It's okay, I added that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think we're okay.
I agree, and I have enough to go off of it, I can kind of,
Yeah.
but
I think this isn't bad. I mean, you know, I was kind of worried we take on too much,
Mhm.
and council would say, oh, come on, because get real. But I think this is okay. So let's just go over what we need to do from our steps with council. So what we need to do is we need to just review this, circulate it, and
Sarah will edit it. I'll send it to
edit
Sarah.
it, send it around.
Yeah.
But we need to then, Steph, we need to send this to,
So if we make the recommendation now,
Yeah.
to recommend that council adopt the work plan as amended, subject to the budgeting process.
okay, but we haven't asked for any money, so, but it's part of,
Okay, we haven't spent any money, so just let me adopt the work plan.
is the word adopt the word? I mean, council doesn't adopt it, we adopt it, or council approve? I don't know, I'm afraid I'm searching here.
Council approve.
Council
Sorry.
approve the proposed work plan for ECAC for 2019. All right. Someone want to move that? Hey, Mark moved it. Anyone? Alan seconded it. Any further discussion? Those in favor? Opposed and carried unanimously. Okay, nice work. Okay, so send it around.
Yes.
And we will, we need to do that quite quickly. I
Yeah.
don't know when do we need to, because this would go in the,
The 26th, so the
Okay.
16th.
what's it today, 7th or something like that.
This is the seventh.
Is that a problem? I'm doing a course the next 2 days, so I'll be back in the office
Okay, great.
Monday, so
Yeah.
I can mute them.
Okay. Okay, do we have any other business? Was there info items? In terms of reference, no, we had that as part of our work. Move to adjourn? No objection, I think we're adjourned. Thank you very much. Oh, I've got to sign these quick, right? Oh, it's one of them going to be any change? One has the wrong name.
No, it's not ready yet.
Yeah.
It's only-
All right.